I don't think I'm going to be able to say hello to everyone. Hello. All right, here we go. We are live to Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us on Facebook. If you are joining us there, please feel free, if you're joining on Facebook, to make comments and post questions on the stream. They will be forwarded to us. And again, if you're joining us on Zoom, you will not be able to unmute yourself, but do please say hello and introduce yourself in the chat if you would like. With that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Shaylee for our introduction.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Clara. And hi, everyone. My name is Shaylee Sankala, and I'm the president of Crossroads Initiative and a rising junior at Portola High School. Crossroads Initiative is essentially a nonprofit dedicated to decreasing the mental health stigma one step at a time through student-made magazines and video productions. It was created to share stories of people's struggles with mental health and their recovery in order to portray messages of hope and inspiration to our teen audience to combat isolation. The turnout today is absolutely amazing. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to listen to our speakers talk about their stories and perspectives on mental health. Today we'll be hearing a lot of stories on this topic, and towards the end we will start a discussion to kind of talk about all the information that we learned today. Just a reminder that we will be recording this session, so if you're uncomfortable, please keep your cameras off, and I will be helping mediate this discussion.
All right, thank you so much, Shaylee, for that introduction. Again, my name is Clara. I am the Public Education Event Coordinator at NAMI-NYC, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm gonna very quickly introduce NAMI-NYC, and then we're gonna get into the discussion. As a reminder, we're gonna be keeping everybody muted during the presentation, but please feel free to put questions and comments in the chat. And I will be keeping track of those questions, and we will be asking them to the panelists at the end. NAMI-NYC, one of the co-hosts of this event, along with the Crossroads Initiative, is a grassroots mental health organization. We're based in New York City, but operating remotely at the moment. And our mission is to provide support, education, and advocacy for individuals and families impacted by mental illness. This means that we have free peer-led support groups, classes, and other services available virtually and over the phone for people living with mental health conditions and for their family members and loved ones. Peer-led means all of our programs are led by people who have lived experience with these issues. So our bipolar support group is led by people living with bipolar disorder. Our parent support group is facilitated by parents, so on and so forth. You can learn more about our many groups and other programs by going to our calendar at naminyc.org/calendar, which I'm line, and I'm going to put that phone number in the chat as well, or email us at helpline@naminyc.org. So please check us out. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Dia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dia Jane, and like Clara said, I'll be moderating this discussion. So I'm the advocacy director at Crossroads Initiative, and like Shaylee, I'm a rising junior at Portola High School, which is located in California. So today's discussion is going to be focused on the intersection of technology and mental health, which goes with the theme of Crossroads Next Magazine edition, which you could all keep a lookout for at xroadsinitiative.org. Shaylee, you could put that in the chat so that people can click the link. So today we have 4 panelists here to talk about their own various perspectives on the questions that we'll ask them throughout the discussion. So we can start with some introductions from our panelists.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to thank everybody for attending and thank Crossroads and NAMI-NYC for allowing me to speak here today. My name is Saud Moon, and I'm a senior at Portola High School. I'm also the director of marketing at Crossroads Initiative. I'm very passionate about mental health issues, and for this reason, I've dedicated my life towards establishing a nonprofit that relates to assisting those who suffer from mental health issues. And yeah, I'm just really excited for our discussion today.
Hi everyone, my name is Kaylin. I'm also a senior at Portola High School. I was lucky enough to work with Crossroads during their first edition. I use technology and social media to build a platform for my music, but as someone who struggled with mental health in the past, I've seen the effects that social media can have on people firsthand. I'm looking forward to be able to share my experience and perspective and hear from the other panelists.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm a junior at CUNY Queens College in New York studying psychology. I'm also a mental health advocate and volunteer with NAMI. I've been passionate about like all things mental health for quite a few years now, as it's affected myself, some close family members, and friends. So I'm really interested to hear about other people's perspectives today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Muir, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed professional clinical counselor. So my current position is a mental health specialist for Irvine Unified School District, which is where Portola High School is where I'm located, where several of these students attend. Right now, my job entails, I do a variety of mental health services. So I do a lot of crisis assessments, suicide assessments, short-term support, case management, and I'm also in charge of school-wide mental health initiatives and campaigns. I look forward to this discussion today.
Perfect. So before we begin, I just wanted to remind everyone to keep a lookout for our next edition that Dia mentioned, coming out on March 1st on our website, crossroadsinitiative.org, and to follow our Instagram at Crossroads Initiative. Currently, we are also looking for members to join our advocacy, global writing, and marketing team, and we are open to collaboration and funding opportunities. So if you're interested, please email xroadsinitiative@gmail.com or shaylee@xroadsinitiative.org. I will put all the information in the chat so that it doesn't get lost. And if you have a question while the panelists are speaking, please ask us in the chat, but keep in mind we will have a 20-minute open discussion and Q&A later as well. Without further ado, let's start the discussion.
Okay, so our first question today is for all of the speakers. How has technology impacted each of your mental health personally?
So, technology, specifically social media, has been a huge crutch for me during quarantine, but I learned very quickly that word spreads on social media, and once I put something on my Instagram or my TikTok or wherever it's open for anybody to judge or make opinions about, as someone who's always placed a lot of value in other people's opinions, it can be really tolling on my mental health to constantly overthink everything I post, because technology makes it so much easier for people to voice their opinions about anything and everything.
Yeah, so for me, technology has been kind of a double-edged sword. As someone who suffered from mental health for like 7 years, I've really found I found like forums of people who are going through the same stuff as me. It kind of feels like a sense of community, and that's a nice feeling that I'm not like alone. But also technology comes with its negative effects where you're kind of feeling pressured or you feel that it's like kind of like an escape. And social media can do that to you too, where you kind of feel like it has made me feel pretty bad about myself at times. But I think it just depends on the way I handle it. And I've been working on handling it better and just like kind of getting the better effects of technology and not really the bad parts.
Yeah, so I definitely want to piggyback off of it could be a double-edged sword in the sense of like the community aspect and feeling like you're not alone. But I think like I personally have never been a big technology person, so it's been a little like stressful and overwhelming to learn all of these new things, especially with the transition to like distance learning and whatnot. So like my anxiety has been a little high, and yeah.
I think for me, I mean, just looking back, like the last 11 months of our lives that have been just completely turned upside down. I mean, technology has just plays such a different, more extensive role in our life during this period. And so I know for me personally, it's just dealing with comparison, trying like not to judge people too much on social media, like, oh my God, they're out, they don't have masks on, what's wrong with them, you know, and just being like, oh, wow, that picture was, you know, from 2 years ago. Maybe I need to like, you know, slow my roll a little bit and not judge so hard on people. But I think it's just, you know, it's just tough. And we rely, our lives, our everything is technology now. And I'm going to go into more later, but I think just watching how we compare and judge has been like the biggest thing for me personally.
Yeah, kind of adding on to that, like I've done that a lot where I go on social media and I see people like going out with their friends like maskless and stuff like that, and that's like really stressed me out. And just kind of adding on to what I was saying earlier, technology like for like the past like year has been kind of a mess for me personally because I've also found myself like looking up like COVID statistics and looking at like that Google graph all the time. I don't know if you guys do that, but I always look at the graph of the COVID cases and being like, "Oh, when will this go back to normal?" And that's like always been a really bad stressor. And always under that graph is like news of people that are like passing away or people that are like deathly ill from it. It's just like that's a major stressor and something that's like impacted me pretty badly as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of those points. And I feel like it's really important to tell people stories so that there's more awareness on, I guess, the harms and benefits of social media at the same time. So, our next question is, what can you do in order to cope with the impacts of technology on your mental health? And how can students balance social media with their well being?
Okay, so this is a lot of a question. So when I was just thinking about technology and mental health and like removing out social media, which is difficult, I think that like we all know like not all technology is bad. And I think for us, and even though we all know this, I mean, it's like we all have to find a balance. And anytime you look up anything about social media and mental health, it's find a balance, find a balance. Well, I mean, what does that mean? Like that's different for each person, because for some it might, you know, if you are doing 100% virtual schooling right now, you cannot exactly take a break from technology. Like finding that balance is very difficult. And so I think it's more saying, okay, my class is ending. When my class ends, I'm going to actually close my computer and I'm not going to pick up my phone for like 5 to 10 minutes or whatever you feel is a realistic amount of time. Because we have to accept that technology is part of our life and it's not going away. I mean, it'd be great in the fall if things are a little bit back to normal, but we don't know. And so I think we have a love, you know, everyone has like a love-hate relationship with technology right now. And so I think for each person, it's finding out what works for you. Now, if we move to just specifically talking about mental health, I think it's really important that we all have some sort of coping skills that have nothing to do with technology. That is hard, especially if we're on quarantine and we are not really supposed to be leaving the house, and so our coping skills may just be like exercise or walking, you know, something with even that with no technology. That means no music when you're working out. I mean, that's hard. And so, but maybe it's reading a book, not on your phone though. Like, you know, and so it's difficult, but I think you can do it. We can all find ways, certain like coping skills, whatever makes us feel better. We need to just find ways to decrease some of our technology use. So let's kind of like jump over to social media, which is like a whole nother beast. It's very difficult. I will say for me personally, at our school that most of us either attend or work at, so much of even just like school announcements are on social media. And there's almost, you know, I was talking with a student the other day and they're like, oh, I'm not on Instagram. And I'm like, oh my God, how do you like, do you know what's going on at the school? And I felt kind of stupid saying that, but we rely so much on social media. And so at the same time, we have to make sure that we're not constantly picking up our phone. I have mine right here, you know, we need to take a break. And does that mean maybe only checking social media a couple times a day? Or does that mean going more extreme and only doing one time a day? It kind of depends on what, if you, I guess, have a little bit more of an addictive personality, then it may be harder to just kind of drop down to only going on social media a couple times a day or one time a day. But again, it's finding out and limiting yourself, putting the limit on you to what you can do and what you can't do in terms of social media. Does anyone else want to jump in on any of that?
I mean, I completely agree. I feel like finding that balance is definitely really important. And I know something that I do is I go on a walk when I feel like I've had too much like time on my screen or something like that. So I think it's important to find that coping strategy as well. So our next question is, how has the switch to a virtual and online lifestyle due to the pandemic impacted your mental health?
I think on one hand, it was a nice break for like the first month, and being able to learn online has definitely eased my worries about the pandemic. But at the same time, I've never been someone where academics are my strong suit. So I'm having a hard time learning online, and performing is my passion. And it really drove me to stay focused in school, which is something you can't do with distance learning and COVID guidelines. So that was definitely difficult. And it's also hard just not being able to see your friends and rely on those social connections as a form of coping.
For me, it's been pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. Going from I'm someone who really enjoys having like a consistent schedule, and it's just like easier for me that way. It kind of removes a lot of stressors, and I'm just kind of like setting my schedule a little bit. So switching to virtual and online lifestyle has been really hard because going online requires a lot of like self motivation to stay on track, especially with school and just like in general with my life because I've kind of just let a lot of things go. And the first like 6 or 7 months, I'd say, were a really hard adjustment for me, but I'm starting to get used to it now. Uh, but it's definitely been pretty bad on my mental health. Staring at a computer all day on Zoom is not something that I think most people enjoy, and it definitely is feel like a little, I guess, demotivating and boring. So it has been pretty bad on my mental health. And it's kind of been a struggle. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been quite an adjustment as well. Also because I do enjoy structure a lot too. And I guess for me, it kind of depends on what my professor is like for that semester, because it's been very stressful to have some classes be synchronous one moment and then asynchronous the next, or vice versa. And then I also have a work schedule, a full-time work schedule to work with, and then a training regimen to work with, and all this stuff. So I feel like it's been more stressful, and my anxiety levels have, like I said before, been pretty high. And I feel like it kind of just, it takes a while for me to adjust to everything, but it's kind of like a little roller coaster like throughout the year. So yeah, it's definitely pretty hard. And at least I can leave my house and go to work. I mean, it doesn't always feel like the safest thing, but I have to go to work. So yeah, it's definitely been very tough, and I feel like I'm constantly having to readjust and readjust. And as someone who likes structure, that's very hard to keep doing constantly.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like um overall like virtual and online lifestyle is not something that's ideal, but and it can impact like a lot of people's lifestyle. So I it's important to keep that in mind and how we can adjust. So moving on to the next question, what are some social media platforms that you guys think might be the worst for your mental health or like students' mental health in general?
So I think it really does depend on everybody. But I would say in my community that I've seen so far, I would definitely have to say TikTok. I think one, because of how quickly it's grown and it's become such like an addiction thing for so many people, where they spend so many hours and we're just not getting stuff done. I would also say that because of how the TikTok algorithm works, I've seen that people get famous for fitting into a certain beauty standard. And I've talked to a lot of people where that's really tolling on them to just see videos for hours of people that they're comparing themselves to. And personally, I think people feel more comfortable posting on TikTok because it feels indirect. But at the end of the day, it gets around anyways. And I personally had to experience videos about me where people felt comfortable making like public opinions about me because it's social media, and that's definitely difficult.
I would definitely agree with Kaylin. I don't use TikTok. I tried it for a few days, but I definitely didn't like it at all. I think TikTok is one of those apps where it's a bit shallow and it makes people feel worse about themselves. There's a lot of people that just are popular because of fitting into like a certain like the stereotype of like looking good and stuff like that. And people are also very addicted to it. I know a lot of people who kind of struggle to get work done or struggle to even like find happiness because like the TikTok has kind of messed with their like dopamine receptors, and because of like the way that like fast entertainment works is that you get entertained every 5 seconds, and finding happiness outside that is probably really difficult. Another social media platform that's probably bad for people's health is Instagram. Instagram was probably a bigger problem a few years ago, where a lot of people use Instagram, but I think Instagram is also one of those social media apps that a lot of students are on, including me. And it's pretty hard to focus on life outside of it when you're kind of sucked into a social media addiction. And I think that's like been pretty bad for most people's mental health.
Definitely Instagram for me. That's the only thing that I've used. Like I've seen TikTok videos on Instagram, and those have definitely sucked me in. And I've noticed though that I've had to purposely change the things that I've liked, so it can affect the algorithm in a more positive way for me. So like, I guess in the beginning it was more of a distraction, and I'm an overthinker. So I'll come across like quotes and these other like philosophical things, and then just go down a rabbit hole for like an hour and not get anything done. But now I think I use it more as, which is also kind of like a good thing, because it's in a sense teasing myself because we can't really go on vacation right now. Like seeing pictures of like these really nice places that I would love to go hiking or something. But I know that I can't go there. So in a way, it's like escapism for me. So I try to take a more positive approach to it, but it still sucks you in. So it is a distraction.
Yeah, I can definitely, Ashley, I totally agree with what you're saying. And I really don't think that I think every social media has some really bad parts of it. And so I don't think there's one that's maybe worse. I just think we just get sucked in. Like you just get completely sucked in. We're like, oh, cool. I just need like a 10-minute distraction. I just need a break from my schoolwork or work or whatever, and then like an hour later, you feel sad and depressed because you can't go on vacation now. And you're just seeing all these people be happy. Like it just sucks.
Yeah, I feel like FOMO on social media apps is so real. It's like I remember a few years ago, people were like going on vacation in the summer and I couldn't really go. And then I don't know why that bothered me so much, but I would just keep looking at people going on vacation and stuff like that. And there's people who are even going on vacation now, and that just feels really weird. Uh, it's definitely kind of damaging to like your health because you're at home kind of like doing whatever, and then there's people having what seems like the best time of their life, and that FOMO gets pretty bad.
Yeah, so I completely agree with all the points that you guys made. I think it's important to recognize, especially what Ms. Meyer and I think Kaylin said in the beginning, that there's not one social media app or platform that's the worst overall. It really depends on what personally affects you. I know for me, it's mostly TikTok, and that's what I spend most of my time on. So just moving on to our next question. Our next question is, how can others support students who are struggling with an online school environment?
I think that everyone has struggled like in some way with the online school environment. Even like before a year ago, like when I would meeting with students that were just struggling with their mental health so bad, I would very rarely recommend an online school because it is you're so disconnected from others. Socially and academically. So I think everyone just needs to, now like think about how long you all been doing it now, about 10, well, besides, if you take out the summer, less than 10 months, but, and so most people have figured out something that works. It doesn't make, everyone is still struggling in different ways, whether it's like low motivation, just difficult turning in assignments, things like that. So I think it's important that everybody, like I said earlier, you have to make sure that you are actually taking a break from Zoom or from your computer once that class ends. Or once whatever meeting ends, whatever you have to physically step away from the computer, which I know I totally struggle with myself when I'm at work or even in my personal life, but you just have to step away. You have to get away from technology. Being in front of technology like this is not good for our brains. Some of us are having like eye problems now from staring at the screen too much. And I think that it's also just important to be there for other people. And my capacity at the school is different than, you know, you all can be like the support that you can provide for your friends. But I think that, and I was just talking with a student the other day, and they're like, yeah, we just FaceTime and we make each other do our homework. Like my friend and I, if she's doing her homework, I'm doing my homework, and it's the only way we get anything done. And I'm like, awesome, that works. And the two of those friends have realized that's what works for them in supporting each other. And so I think it's finding that. And I feel like that's what's going to make us all kind of like get through this for now, is trying new things and see what works, and see, oh no, I tried that did not work. Okay, let's try something different. Because we're stuck in this right now. And that doesn't mean we have to be going completely crazy, but just trying something different in terms of how you can support yourself and how you can support other friends.
I agree with Miss Moore. I've definitely done something like that where just kind of like asked a friend like, okay, do you want to call her or something so we could just all work together? And I'm in a big chat with my friends, and we're like, okay, guys, we need to get work done. So we just all hop on call and just make sure that to motivate each other and just like send what we have to do and just get it done together. I think it takes a while to figure out, of course. And I just recently figured this out a few months ago where it helped to like kind of work with other people. So I think that's like a really good way to support your friends, just to make sure like you're there for them as well and there to motivate them. I think it helps a lot when you just like, when you actually say that like I'm here to help you, it can make a really big impact in people's lives. So that's just my personal experience with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially with COVID and everything, it's important to find, I guess, a community of people that can help you and just being there for them, like Miss Moyer and Saad said. So this next question kind of relates to what we're talking about right now, which is how can parents or family members support young people that might be dealing with mental illnesses, especially with the switch to an online environment?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate with my family members. They've been really supportive, my parents and my sisters. And what personally has helped me a lot is that just having parents that are there for you. They've talked to me about like going to like get help and stuff like that. They've always been very supportive of stuff like that. So I think that the best thing that someone can do as a parent, as a kid, would be to say that that you understand. I felt that a lot of times parents don't exactly understand what kids are going through right now, especially with like COVID, distance learning, and also just like society has changed a lot for our generation. So I think that a parent who is like putting the effort into like support young people is like, that's a lot. It goes a really, really long way. And a small gesture can kind of change a kid's life, I think. And in my personal experience, it just means a lot to make small gestures, be there, offer support, and don't really ostracize them for like feeling the way they feel, you know? So
I would say when a lot of my job is working with parents, and trying to a lot of times convince them like, hey, you need to be listening to your teenager. They are not in a good place. And I tell them, I said, you need to acknowledge the hurt. They're hurting right now and they need your support. Even if you're like, it's not that bad, their life's not that bad, to them, they're hurting and they need support and they need love and they do not need your judgment. They just need you to be there and to get them help. One of the best things that is going on with technology right now is more therapy online. The majority of therapy is online right now, and that has kind of opened up. There is a lot of, well, everyone, like, I mean, young people and adults that are getting access to therapy that have never accessed it ever in their life because it's all on the computer and it's easier to get. And so a lot of times with parents, I say, you know what, let's talk about the stigma. You don't want your friends to know in your community that, you know, your child has a mental health struggle. Okay, well, you don't have to tell anyone. This is your child. This is your family. Keep it confidential and get the help that they need because they're struggling and I need you to acknowledge that. So that's a lot of my job.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Miss Moore. I think a lot of the times it's a little bit hard to understand because it may seem like there's nothing wrong in a parent's perspective that like you provide a good life and kind of what I've seen is that parents like ask their kids to be grateful. That's definitely a line I've heard a lot, and I think that sometimes people go through stuff, and specific kids like they go through certain situations that parents can't exactly see, and regardless of how nice someone's life can be objectively, their emotions, they still feel them, right? So I think the first thing is just first and foremost should just keep an open mind and just be understanding.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you guys said. I think it's important to recognize that everything someone goes through is relative and it's never not bad enough for someone's emotions to not be valid. So moving on to our next question, it's what are resources that schools provide for mental health that are already in place right now?
So that's going to be like completely dependent on the school and the school district that you attend. And I'm seeing in all the people that are in here, there's people from all over the world right now. So it's hard for me to say. I feel so fortunate. I'm so grateful that I have this position of being a therapist in a high school. I believe that, it's great that any student can come and access a licensed mental health therapist on campus. Now, it's not like that everywhere. But there's always some help, whether it's counselors, it's school psychologists, it's maybe a peer-led mental health program. Help is out there. You just have to ask for it. And that's what I'm telling students right now. I'm like, if you need help, you need to come find me, or you need to come find someone, because we don't want you to be struggling alone. And there are a lot of people that really, really want to help you right now. So if anyone in this call right now is just struggling, there is help out there. You just have to ask for it, whether it's at your school or a community resource or through NAMI. The help is out there.
I know at my school we have peer counselors, and then we have counselors who we have access to. But one thing I actually recently looked into because I needed it. So they have special services for students. So if you get any kind of documentation from a licensed mental health professional, you can get whatever accommodations that you need. So if it's more time for an assignment, more time for a test, an audio recorder, a note taker, almost like anything that you name, whatever you need, they're pretty good at giving it to you, especially with the distance learning.
Yeah, so I think it does differ school to school, but hopefully in most areas or most schools that you go to will have some kind of person that you can talk to, or an adult that's there for your mental health. But if there isn't, like Ms. Myers said, you can reach out to different organizations or even any trusted adult that could link you to someone that is licensed and knows how to handle your situation. So our last question for today is, how can the resources at your school or resources in general be improved?
So as a student at Portola High, our resources here are really good. Of course, we have Miss Moore, who has been really helpful to me personally as well, and just a lot of people that I know. So I think our school has a lot of great resources, but of course, it's not perfect, and there are ways to improve it. I found that in my personal experience, and it's just stuff that I've heard from my friends, is that it's not exactly the resources, but it's more sensitivity with teachers. One thing that I noticed is that it feels like sometimes for my friends who are suffering from mental health issues, and me as well, teachers aren't always the most understanding people, and they don't really know how to handle situations too well. So I think that sometimes it's just a little difficult for teachers like obviously they have hundreds of students and you can't really accommodate to every situation, but I think definitely that teachers should be a little bit more sensitive about stuff like this.
I think in my case, I had to do a lot of digging to find resources at my school. Like going to tabs that weren't even linked through other links. Like it seems like a lengthy process. And I know, I think it was like my first semester, first year back at school. And it felt so long that I just didn't even bother I was like, this just seems like it's going to be too much, and I'm just going to do whatever I can do without it. So I think, I guess, bringing more recognition or awareness to whatever resources are out there, because for my school personally, it's not like right in front of me. And I guess also because I am studying psychology, I get emails all the time about these things. I don't know if other students in other majors get emails like once a week about counselors and peer counseling and all this stuff. So I don't know who else knows about it. So it could be really difficult to even find it.
Yeah, so I also go to Portola, and I agree that our mental health resources there are really readily available to people. And I've been lucky enough to get teachers who have been pretty understanding. I think an issue, not necessarily with the resources themselves, but is definitely just stigma around getting help. And there's a lot of stigma that if you get help, there's something wrong with you, which there absolutely is not, which is why it's good that there's organizations like NAMI and like Crossroads that are helping to break that stigma down.
That stigma is really frustrating. I've heard of people like, especially at my school, because there's a little bit of a toxic learning environment. That's like a different topic, but there is a toxic learning environment in my school. And for people that do get help and kind of get a little bit like cut slack, I guess, there's like people who like judge them. And that stigma is like a really big deal because I don't think people are as aware. So I guess a resource that can be improved would be some sort of like, I guess like lesson or something when it comes to mental health, just so people can kind of understand and break down stigma a little bit. I think that all schools should do this because it would be good to teach kids like from a young age and just like high schoolers too that mental health is not what it seems like sometimes. And I feel like a lot of people have preconceived notions, and it'd just be nice to break them down at like an early time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what all the speakers said. So thank you so much for answering our questions and sharing your personal experiences with mental health. Now that we've kind of gone over all of the general topics for the discussion, any listeners, you guys feel free to start asking questions because we are entering the Q&A portion of our event, or even sharing any takeaways that you have from the speakers. I'll be checking the chat, and so will the rest of the hosts, or you can use the raise hand feature if you want to be unmuted and talk in the discussion.
And there was one question that was a little ways back in the chat that maybe we can start off with. I'm not sure if any of you can speak to this, but there was a question about what are other countries doing to support their students? Are any other countries, being able to be more effective? One person shared in the chat that they were in university in England and they were not finding it very supportive. But yeah, just curious. That was a question that was a little while ago in the chat.
I think that maybe my experience was a little different, but I spent half of my life living in Pakistan, and definitely being in Pakistan, there's a lot of stigma around mental health. If like, it's a lot worse than what it would be in the United States, or just in the West in general. There were actually no resources at all. If you were kind of sad, you were just kind of viewed as weak, and especially if you were a guy because toxic masculinity and all that. But I think for someone who's like kind of like suffered from mental health since I was like a kid and just like mental illnesses, there were not any resources at all. And just like a kind of like a lack of education when it comes to mental health in general.
Thank you for sharing that, Saud. Oh, here's a great question. Who would you generally, for the students particularly, who would you generally feel more comfortable going to first if you're struggling? Peers, parents, teachers, school counselors, online communities? Yeah.
Okay, so for me, it's really just been mainly going to peers, and for my experience, I've gone to peers first, and then parents second, and then school counselors third, and then also online communities definitely. So it kind of would be like peers and online communities, and then it would be parents after, and then just like asking them what I should do. Like I said earlier, my parents are really understanding about this type of stuff, and they've recommended me to go to counselors. So I've gone to my school counselor a ton, and also I would say teachers last. That's just because for my personal thing, I just don't really feel as comfortable, and I've never really had like a close relationship with a teacher ever. So just from my personal experience, I've never really gone to one. So.
I would say for me, mine's like completely different, but I luckily have been able to make connections with teachers who I feel comfortable talking to. So I would say teachers and then school counselors. For me, I just have a hard time talking to people I personally like am close to and I know about mental health. So peers and parents have also have always definitely come last for me. And then online communities, it really depends on what it's about.
Ashley, I don't know if the question meant just the high school students, but I think you could definitely also speak to this.
So I think just based off where I'm at now in my mental health journey, because it's very different when I was younger. Right now I have a couple peers and maybe like a cousin or two that I can go to, depending on the situation, but I usually go to them. And then there's my therapist who, for whatever things I feel like I can't really or like repetitively tell my friends or family members and whatnot, that's what I use my therapist for. And it also gives me another perspective. So like a third party that only knows what I tell them. So their perspective is just so different. But usually, like my parents and whatnot, every now and then, if they ask a question, cool. But I don't know if that's like an age thing. I don't know. But I just go to my friends and family members first and then my therapist.
So there is one more question, which I think in the chat, and then I think there's a couple more coming in, but any tips on ways to start a conversation with young people who might be resistant to limiting their social media use? Kaylin, I saw you make a face. I don't know if you want to start.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a few ways. Personally, I will admit that I definitely have a social media problem. And I've definitely had my parents, even my friends, tell me like you need to get off social media. And there's definitely two ways. I've had people come at me. One where it's like, you have a problem, like there's something wrong with you. And I think it's really just you have to watch how you're approaching people. And even if you have good intentions, they might not come off as good intentions depending on how you say it. So I think just make sure it's clear that you want whoever you're talking to limit their social media use for their own good and not because, you're judging them or because you don't understand like what they're going through.
Okay. If any of the other speakers want to talk on that, if not, we can move on to the next question.
I would say usually I just ask, like if I'm meeting with a student, I'm just like, tell me about your social media use. Like, do you, like how many hours a day do you, and just trying to open up the conversation to be like, okay, so it sounds like that's like 10 hours a day. Like, what else could you be doing with that 10 hours of your day, and just trying to get them to like be aware, because if anyone comes and says, hey, you need to do this and you need to limit it, it doesn't work. Like it has to be inside of you, you have to have some intrinsic motivation to actually do it. Anytime we want to change, even if we want to exercise more, lose weight, we have to have some sort of internal motivation, because if it's coming from someone else, it's not going to be successful.
I agree with Miss Mar. I think people can be very stubborn, especially teenagers, where if we're told to do something with like force, we tend to not do it. And I've never really had it. I used to have like a little bit of an issue with my social media use where I use it a little bit too much, but I think that the best thing that happened to me was that I talked to like a family member, my sister, about it, and she was just like really nice about it. She kind of told me that she also experienced it, and she just kind of listened to like why I do it and kind of offered me some strategies, just like doing other things and like organizing a schedule. That's just been really helpful to me. It's like having a schedule, and I also use apps like Focus Keeper. I don't know if you've ever used that, but it's basically like this timer app that like allows you to work for 25 minutes and you take a 5-minute break. And then that happens like in intervals of 4 times. And then you get like a long 25-minute break. And that was definitely something that's helped me maintain my focus and kind of avoid social media, like interrupting what I'm supposed to do, my responsibilities. So if you suggest stuff like that, I think that if they have some internal motivation, then they'll definitely listen. It's called Focus Keeper.
Okay, I think our next question was directed at NAMI. Clara, if you want to answer that question real quick.
Yeah, I think I did. But there was a question right after it. Oh, yeah. For Ms. Moyer. Yeah, I think I can't quite find it. Do you see
Is
it?
that the one on social emotional learning? Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, I've been a therapist for a long period of time, but I've only been in the schools for the last 5 years, so I would say there definitely has been a big push for social emotional learning, whether it's curriculum, lessons, pre-COVID. But I think now there's even just an even heightened awareness of, hey, we need some skills. Like we need everybody, whether you're 5 years old or whether you're 18, like everybody needs some awareness of mental health and then also just how to cope when things are not going well. I think so many of us maybe thought our mental health was stable and then COVID hit and you're like, whoa, I was not as stable as maybe I thought. And so I think that there is going to continue to be a huge push in schools. Right now, I would say there's more push in younger age in elementary schools, bringing in curriculum. Curriculum, depending on where you are in the United States or the world, there are school districts that have already adapted curriculum. In our district, social emotional curriculum is only mandatory in elementary school right now. And that's only maybe a year, maybe 2 years old. So I think it's just going to continue because everyone is just realizing we need to really focus on life skills, coping skills, and just resiliency skills in general.
Okay, I think that was the last question that was asked to the speakers. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to use the chat or the raise hand feature. Okay, so thank you so much for listening and participating in the discussion. We hope that after today, you are more understanding and educated on mental health and its relation to technology. Oh, just to answer, yeah, this will be recorded and posted on the Crossroads Initiative website, which I can put the link in the chat at the end of the meeting. But don't forget to follow us, Clara.
And also on the NAMI-NYC Facebook page, that will be available basically as soon as the presentation is over.
Yep, so we'll put some more links just so that you guys don't have to scroll all the way up. But if you have anything that you would like to talk to any of the panelists or moderators about, please feel free to stick around. But if not, thank you so much for coming and we would love to see you at our next discussion. So I'll just be putting some links in the chat and maybe Clara can too. But thank you so much for it.
I'm gonna go ahead and let folks unmute themselves. So if you, I know sometimes folks have difficulty with the chat or with the raise hand feature. So just in case somebody has a question and hasn't been able to access one of those options, I'm gonna let them, let you all try that. See if anybody would like to add any last questions or thoughts. If not, that's also okay. Appreciate all of the thank yous in the chat, all the appreciation. Please definitely check us. You can look at NAMI-NYC services at naminyc.org. There's also a lot of links. There have been some links for that in the chat as well. Love the little reaction emojis. Awesome.
Hello.
Oh yeah, did you have a question?
Hi. Yes. I'm calling in from the UK actually, so it's really cool hearing you guys talk about your mental health services and what you guys are doing. I'm a medical student at the minute, so in a couple of years I will be a practitioner as a doctor. And I don't know a lot about the American healthcare system. So I wanted to ask a question relating to mental health about that, if that's okay. Just because there's so many sources online and I honestly don't trust half of them. So I thought I'd ask you guys instead. So my question was, in the UK, there's, well, in a lot of consultations that I do with patients that are teenagers, essentially, they talk to me a lot about mental health, and I feel like they talk to us a lot because they're worried about peer pressure or school or things like that, how it might be perceived. And I was wondering if in America you have that same relationship where the students would talk to healthcare workers about it, or is it like a completely different vibe for you guys there?
I think it totally depends. So, I mean, definitely, and even like for my own children, like I was talking with their pediatrician recently, and she was telling me just that she's just being inundated with so many parents and so many teenagers coming in talking about their mental health. And so the doctor in that is trying to find resources for them. I think a lot comes from the school in terms of students coming in and telling us what's going on. And then for certain circumstances, I might be talking with a parent and then I might be referring them back to their pediatrician or general physician to say, hey, you need to go get a basic physical, some basic blood work screening to just rule out possible medical issues. But it also really, really depends on the doctor and how comfortable, like, let's say a teenager is in talking with that doctor about what's really going on. I do know that more pediatricians and general physicians are starting to do basic depression and suicide screeners during their like yearly physicals, which I think is great. I think that some kids are going to be caught in that way, but it's kind of all over the place. I would. So I don't know if I have the best answer for your question.
No, that I understand it's very different over there. I appreciate you trying to explain it to me. And I also wanted to ask, you mentioned about a social education curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So it's called social emotional learning. So SEL for short. And it's just coming up with basic, like in a school setting, it's like a lesson plan. So, you know, the goal is emotional regulation. And then there's a lesson plan on like teaching feelings and teaching coping skills. And so like here in the US, like there's certain curriculum that has to be taught to every student. And so the hope is that social emotional learning curriculum is going to be mandatory at some point. I hope for the whole nation.
Oh, wow, that is really, really good. I honestly wish we had something like this here. Our government isn't isn't as I don't know what the word to use is the appropriate one. Encouraging when it comes to mental health. We've had a lot of cutbacks recently for our mental health sectors, but I really hope that, you know, in schools they take the initiative to educate children and have curriculums like this in place as well. So thank you so much for the talk. You guys have all been really amazing. It's been lovely to hear from all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. So thanks so much, everyone. I think that's a great note to end on. We're coming right up on either 6 o'clock or 3 o'clock, or perhaps a different time entirely. So I think this is a great point to wrap it up. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thank you, Kaylin, Saud, Ashley. Thank you, Ms. Moyer. Thank you to Dia and Shaylee in absentia for moderating it and keeping the conversation going. We really appreciate you. Thank you to our audience members for coming to us on your Saturday. I hope that this was an educational and informative and inspiring experience for you as well. I know it was for me. So with that, everyone stay safe, have a great weekend, and thank you so much.